My name is Ivor, and I am chair of the Mid-Essex Interfaith Forum, and I'm also on the staff of Chelmsford Cathedral along the road there, and I'm also chair of an organisation called Essex Mind and Spirit. It's one of our newsletters here, which looks at faith and mental health issues. But the forum, which gives its name really to tonight's event, this is part of what's called Interfaith Week, and nationally, all around the country, there are literally hundreds of events to promote dialogue, to encourage interaction between the faiths, to find out what's common, what can be shared, what can be discussed. So it's very appropriate really that we're here tonight on quite a thorny issue, I think, of love, sex and marriage, from a multi-faith, interfaith perspective. The forum meets about 3 or 4 times a year, and we have various events in the community to do precisely that, to bring people together, to try and encourage debate and discussion, and to look at issues of common concern. And the last trip that we had was to the mosque in Chelmsford, and hello, welcome.
Hi, sorry.
That's all right. And some sort of 30, 35 people came to that. Tremendous afternoon at the mosque. And they were very gracious and very generous to us and introduced the whole concept of the mosque and the worship of Islam. And there's lots of other things besides. And I was going to say to you that if that interests you, if you're not a member of the forum, if you're not on my little list, and you would like me to keep you updated about what the forum does, and to invite you to future events, there's a piece of paper here which I'll leave somewhere prominent, and if you'd like to put your name and email address, if you have an email address, or if not, your postal address, and I'll add you to my database, and I will invite you to future events. We're a completely informal group. There's no charge. We don't charge anything. We haven't got a constitution. It's a very laid-back, gentle group, but it has some 40, 50 members now, who opt in and opt out of various events that we do. So, as I say, if you'd like to join that, you'd be welcome. As you probably guessed by now, I've been asked to chair this evening's debate, and I'd like to welcome the panel who very kindly agreed to give their time to come and talk on the subject of love, sex and marriage from their different perspectives. On my right, can I welcome Sidra Naeem, representing the Muslim community, Dean Mitchell, representing the LGBT community, Karen Best, representing the Christian community, Simon Mounsey at the end there, representing the Pagan community, and Paul McGacken, representing the Buddhist community. A welcome to you all. And in a moment, I'm going to ask them to give a few minutes overview from their own perspectives and to introduce themselves to you tonight. Rachel has given me a few sort of facts and figures, really, just to kind of set the context for this subject tonight. And there's some fairly interesting statistics here which you may or may not know, and it's by way of sort of kicking us off before I then welcome people in panel to come and introduce themselves. The largest group of people at the moment are marrieds, 47%, 21.2 million, and this was a decrease of 4 percentage points from the 2001 estimate of 51%. Civil partnerships, as a new legal partnership status, were a small proportion of that total. In fact, less than 1%, 105,000. The percentage of single, that is never married people, increased 5 percentage points from 30% in 2001 to 35% in 2011. And the remainder of the usually resident population in 2011 was composed of 9% divorced, 7% widowed, and 3% separated, either from opposite or same-sex relationships. Now, the background, or alongside all that, in terms of faith, Christianity remains the largest group, 59%, but that's down 13 percentage points since 2001. Don't know if you saw that. Did you see the headline in the Daily Mail a couple of days ago? Church on brink of extinction. Massive, great headlines. Apparently Archbishop Carey has opened his mouth again and talked about the fact that in plus one generation, if things are going the way they are, he said that Christianity, or the church at least, will cease to be an effective organisation. So much in the press at the moment about the decline in Christianity. It's the only group, apparently, to have experienced a decrease in numbers between 2001 and 2011, despite the population growth. But interestingly, Christianity is not, it seems to be regional. Places like Newham and Haringey and Brent, Boston and Lambeth all have reported increases in the Christian population. And of course we've had an influx of Polish people who have, in some areas at least, transformed the Roman Catholic communities in this country. And I'm sure people of other faiths and hues can add their own, perhaps, observations on that. But the current trend seems to be that in Britain, marriage rates are declining, and the amount of couples that are cohabiting rather than getting married is increasing. Over a quarter of non-married males and females in Britain under age 60 were cohabiting, which is twice the proportion recorded about 20 years ago. By the early 2000s, the majority of people in first marriages had lived with their partner beforehand, and it seems that cohabitation is now the norm rather than the exception. 11% of children are being raised by unmarried cohabiting couples, and about 60% of first-time cohabiting couples eventually result in marriage. Make of that what you will. Reasons why marriage may be declining, and the suggestions are a changing role for women, growing economic independence, giving them more freedom to choose their relationships, growing divorce rates, and the message it's sending out to potential marriage partners, a growing secularisation, which we've seen, religious thinking practiced in institutions having less social significance, the greater availability and more effective contraception, and perhaps higher expectations of marriage in today's society. And I just throw those out really as a bunch of thoughts and statistics which one or two of which you may find interesting, and perhaps will inform what happens tonight with our debate. But without further ado, can we go on to the panel, who are each going to give a little bit of background, I think, about themselves and where their community and faith community may stand on this subject. And can I, first of all, in the order set out here, welcome Sidra Naeem, who's going to talk from the perspective of the Muslim community. Sidra.
Okay, hello everybody. Thank you for inviting me here to talk to you all about marriage, sex and love. And the perspective the perspective that I'm going to give to you will be obviously an Islamic perspective. I've got a PowerPoint presentation which is in 3 small parts, which deals with before marriage, and then during marriage, and then after marriage. So I'll try and get through that as quickly as I can. Okay, so first of all, marriage is really, really important in Islam, and marriage actually completes faith, and it's half of the religion. So getting married is half of the religion and completes faith in Islam. And before marriage, if we look at before marriage, Islam prohibits fornication, which is any sexual relations outside of marriage. And it also closes all the avenues and means leading to it. So that includes, stimulating desires and that kind of stuff. If we think of the saying living in sin, which is still around today, that still exists in Islam. Okay, one of the questions which will be coming up is about internet dating, and this is what Islam thinks about internet dating. So a daughter, this is a little bit of sense of humour, so a daughter says, "Dad, I'm in love with a boy who is far away from me. I'm in Australia and he lives in the UK. We met on a dating website, became friends on Facebook, had long chats on WhatsApp. He proposed to me on Skype, and now we've had 2 months of relationship through Viber. Dad, I need your blessings and good wishes." And the father turns around and says, "Wow, really? Then get married on Twitter, have fun on Tango, buy your kids on Amazon and send them through PayPal. And if you are fed up with your husband, send him on eBay." So basically, what I'm trying to say there is that they're not really realistic unless you meet with the person, get to know the family. And there are lots and lots of concepts that are happening in Islam over the internet where, there are boys becoming friends just to get over to get a visa, for example, into England. So it's not really realistic unless you meet with the person, meet with the family, and then decide. So that's just answering that question, which will come later on. Okay, the other thing is when we look for a partner, in Islam we do not look for someone of the same gender, and there are a couple of reasons for that. The first one is that we believe that Adam and Eve were created by God and they were opposite genders. And if God wanted the same gender, he would have created 2 men or 2 women. That's the first perspective. The second one is that a male and a female gives a child, as in the picture, whereas with a male and a male, then there's no byproduct. So we believe that that's the way naturally. If we look at this picture here, animals as well, if we look at animals or plants, every living thing has opposite genders, and then they mate, and then that's how offspring come about. So that's the other point of view. Also, if we look at Noah, when in the Bible or in the Quran, they mention the story of Noah and the flood. He also collated every single animal that were 2 different genders and put them on the boat so that they could then produce offspring. And the other very quick one is the story of Prophet Lot, which is also in the Bible as well. The story of Sodom and Gomorrah, where Muslims believe that homosexuality was being practiced, and people were then punished by God because of the act, really. So that's the other one. When we choose a partner, there are a couple of things we look for, and this is all again before marriage. So we believe that faith is important when selecting our partners. Does anybody know the reason why we wouldn't go for looks? Any ideas? Yes, yes. So that's the next slide. A pretty face gets old, a nice body will change, but a good woman will always be a good woman. So we all get old, we all get wrinkly, our teeth fall out, we all get fat, some of us ladies do anyway. So, if you go for a pretty face, then what's going to happen when your wife becomes old and wrinkly. So that kind of attitude. So better to look at personality. So basically, marriage completes faith, and this man here has got a t-shirt that says, "My wife is my other half," because that's exactly the way marriage is in Islam. It completes the faith. One thing which is bound to come up is arranged marriages or forced marriages. So I've got a picture here of a lady who's grabbing the man. Basically what that shows is that a woman can choose her husband as well. It's not just the other way around. And she cannot marry without her free consent. A forced marriage is not accepted in Islam, and a marriage is void if she says no at any stage. Forced marriages are a cultural distortion. Also, it's actually the girl who's asked in marriage before the boy, and she's asked 3 times. So if she says no on any of those 3 times, then the marriage is void, and then the boy is asked afterwards. So that proves that fact. On signing, a contract, a marriage contract, the woman has the right of keeping her maiden name, and Islam highlights a woman's distinct personality, and upon entering marriage, she is entitled to keep her maiden name. She does not change her surname to that of her husband's, and it's actually preferred that she keeps her maiden name so that her line of descent can be traced. The other concept actually that came when Islam came was that before Islam came, lots and lots of men were choosing women, marrying them for their money and using them basically, And so when Islam came, the groom has to give a gift to the bride, and the concept of the groom giving to the bride stops him using her, which was happening pre-Islamic days. Again, in some cultural settings, there's all this huge dowry business, that the bride is giving to the groom, and that's again a cultural distortion. When Islam came, it's actually the boy who gives money to the wife to marry her, so that it stops the fact that he's using her. Does that make sense to everybody? I have got some nods, so hopefully it is. Okay, so we've got the girl who we want to choose. We've got some money off the boy. What do you think the next thing is?
Permission from parents?
Yes, permission from parents is a good one, yes. And then the dad says yes, then what? Get married. Okay, I won't play the whole song because we haven't got that much time. But there's 2 main days of a wedding. This day here is the day of the actual vows that I explained to you already. And then there's one ceremony which the boys have to do. Again, that stops the boys using the girls. The tradition colour to get married in is white as well, same as Christianity. Okay, the next slide is pre-marriage standard of living. So wives can say to the husband, I had a house, a really big house, I had servants, I had a boat when I wasn't married to you. So when we get married, it's the husband has to maintain that status if he can. If he has the money to do so, he has to maintain the same standard of living for his wife. And that includes like a car, for example. So if she had a Mercedes before marriage and he's got loads of money, she can request, actually, I'd like a Mercedes, please. So that's that one. Okay, during marriage now. So we're in the middle of marriage now. And some things in our faith should tell us and make the marriage easier for us. So it says in the Quran, and among his signs is this, that he created for you mates from among yourselves, and that's this business about Eve being created from the rib of Adam, that you may dwell in tranquility with them, and he has put love and mercy between your hearts. So that kind of stuff keeps you together. And the other one, to keep the men prim and proper is to the best amongst you are those who are best to your wives. So that keeps the men being really, really good to their wives. Okay, so their marriage, what's next?
Children.
Very quiet. Children, good. Somebody's awake. Okay. Okay, so children is next. That's important in Islam. That's why you get married, isn't it? To have children. So children is important. A mother has huge respect in Islam because all of a sudden, she's a mother, and there's a saying that heaven lies at the feet of thy mother. Now, when a child is born, the father's surname goes on to the child. The child adopts the father's surname and the religion as well. So the religion of the father then goes on to the child. And we can have as many children as we like with lots of other religions. If you go to the original Catholicism or Judaism, we can have as many children as you like, but obviously it depends on the health of the mother. The main role of the mother is this. Okay. So the main role, obviously, we're the ones who have the children. We breastfeed. God has chosen us to breastfeed children, so we are the main people who obviously are going to look after the baby. Maintaining the house is important. Raising and teaching children are the first and very highly regarded roles of a Muslim woman. But obviously, if then after that role she has time to educate herself or to work, earn a living, of course she can do that. So in fact, working in Islam for a Muslim woman is quite good because she can earn and keep her own money. Islam was the first religion to give women the right to personal ownership of property and wealth. And this right does not change when she marries. For the first time in history, women were granted economic independence in Islam. The money they bring into marriage is theirs as well as the money they earn. And that is, again, to stop all this business of men using women. What's the man's role, do you think? Any ideas? Yes. To feed her, he's not hitting her there. To feed her, to clothe her, to give her shelter. And the other one is protection. So protection by your husband is another main role, and Muslims believe that men are big and strong and taller for a reason, because they're the protectors of women. So obviously the women in a way are in the house and they're having a good life, and the men are out earning the money. So the next slide is really what Muslims feel about the way it is. It's quite a laugh really that the women, they sit and they get fat, and the men are the ones who are going out and earning and all the rest. Okay, right, we're sort of in the middle of marriage now. What's going to happen next? We're in the middle of marriage. The honeymoon period is over. We've had all the children. What's the next stage, everybody? Midlife crisis. Any other arguments? Of course they're going to start, aren't they? This is going to happen, isn't it? This kind of stuff where, it's sort of not all roses now, husbands are bringing in vegetables and things now, so it's going a bit sour. So there are two sayings in Islam that keep the marriage going. One is, the man dreams of a perfect woman, and the woman dreams of a perfect man. And they don't know that God created them to perfect one another. So that's a really interesting one, because in a way they say opposites attract. Well, maybe it's for a reason. God's made one untidy and the other one super tidy, and then you rub off on each other and you make one whole person. So it's quite interesting really, that one. The other one that keeps us going is, when a husband and wife look at each other with love, God looks at both of them with mercy. So that is another one that stops us sort of breaking away. So there can be reconciliation, But then in the end, Islam was actually, say it does come to divorce, Islam was actually the first religion to allow divorce in difficult circumstances. Before Islam, divorce was not permitted, and women would be subjected to beatings and would have to suffer for years, and they could never get out of a difficult marriage. We just have to look back to Henry VIII, when he wanted to divorce his wife. He couldn't, because it was Catholicism in England at the time. And what did he do? He broke away, made his own church, if you like, Church of England, became head of the church, and then, in a way, changed the religion, and then divorced his wife. But with Islam, it was right from the beginning, 1400 years ago. In Islam, women were permitted, or a couple were permitted to have divorce to get away from difficult circumstances. In Islamic countries where divorce does take place, again, it's the male brother or father who would look after her, because there's not the political system where you would get, child benefit or living allowance and that kind of stuff. And it's the same for widows as well, which is the next picture. If a woman was to be widowed, then her dad or her brother would have to look after her, because there wouldn't be any, system in place to provide any money for her. So basically, that is an overview of Islam and marriage.
I'm going to go straight on because our timescale is that each member of the panel has a chance to speak. The three questions which the panel members addressed from their various perspectives, you've probably picked up. Dean had a very clear presentation at the end about the three questions which they were asked to tackle to help them make their presentations. And the questions were: does no sex before marriage still matter in 2013? Is love important in marriage, or is faith the foundation for a successful relationship? And faith perspectives on online dating. And I think all of the panel touched on one or all of those areas in their various presentations. So I don't think I intend necessarily to go back to those questions. It's very much now a question and answer session. If one of those questions you want to pick up on, all well and good, but this is a general session, so if you have any questions that popped up as a result of the presentation, or anything else that you wanted to ask, then I think we're going to open up the floor now to you, and I'm sure the panel will be very willing to answer those questions. So as I say, the three questions are there which were tackled. And if one of those questions you want to follow up on, that's fine. But more generally, you're welcome to ask questions now about this whole subject of love, sex and marriage from different faith perspectives and different institutions.
What is the rationale behind choosing that question about online dating?
That's probably a question that I can throw to Rachel and Sidra, because Rachel and Sidra very kindly put this evening together. And by the way, thank you both for your work. Yes.
So I didn't expect to speak tonight, but generally I do a lot of events here, ones that feed into civic agenda, like Black History Month, International Women's Day. Personally, I'm actually involved in the Mid-Essex Interfaith Forum. I used to work here, and that's how I got involved. The reason why I chose the question about online dating is because with this topic, I just thought it's just so current. And there was a period a couple of years ago where I went to it must have been about 7 or 6 weddings over a period of like 3 years. Every year, we were getting wedding invitations through, and about 3/3 of those couples had met online. So I think it's quite topical. But also, with the questions like, the way people communicate, the way people meet each other, sexual contact is changed, and we're very, very open about talking about it in today's society as well. even novels like 50 Shades of Grey in E.L. James coming out. And I think I just want to sort of address those modern issues, because we don't meet each other in cafes anymore, or if you've got sugar on the right hand side of your supermarket basket, you're single. It just, we don't have those things. It used to be, that's how it used to be. So I think I just wanted to make it a bit more current. And also, I think, for our interfaith meetings, we, usually have a particular age group and over, and I just wanted to also sort of try and include the younger generation, which has worked, because it's so wonderful that so many young people here tonight, and we're really looking forward to hearing your views as well. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so over to you now.
Hi. I wanted to ask the question you said about sex before marriage. So from the faith-based communities which are on the panel, who thinks that it doesn't matter and why?
So one of the questions that was tackled was, does no sex before marriage still matter in 2013? And the question is, who amongst the panel is that?
Well, doesn't agree with it.
Doesn't agree with it.
Yeah.
Who'd like to kick off?
Doesn't agree with sex marriage.
Yeah. As in they're fine with having sex.
Yeah, I believe that. I believe it's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's the idea of one extreme or the other. The desire. If someone is told they can't do something, a lot of the time it creates the feeling of, well, I want it now. Don't press the red button. I want it now. You're telling me not to, and that can create a problem. Same side of the different side of the coin is if you're doing something too much. If you have too much desire to do that thing, it's destructive as well. So the idea is a happy medium, a mindful path between the two. So if that includes a healthy sex life before marriage, that's fine, in my opinion.
I think sex before marriage can be dysfunctional. So if we're talking about sex before marriage that is in the context of a one-night stand or abuse, then clearly all of that is unacceptable. As a priest, I have to work with the reality, and the people that I meet who are seeking to spend the rest of their lives together in marriage are cohabiting. And I think I said earlier, without being repetitive, that I feel is something to embrace. That's a loving relationship. That's where they are at that point in moving towards that, for me, a Christian ideal of being in a one-to-one monogamous relationship. And so a one-to-one cohabiting couple, I personally don't have a problem with, because it's in a loving context. Couple who are cohabiting but exchanging partners regularly, that's a very different situation. So I think there needs to be, some sort of clarification about what sort of sex it is before marriage.
So in the context of the biblical scriptures, sex before marriage then is okay?
No, that's not what I've said. I'm saying that
I know
that
you're
it
saying
needs
your
to be.
opinion, then it's okay, but I'm trying to understand it from the Christian perspective.
The
Can
Christian
you have it before marriage or not?
The Christian perspective is that marriage is a union between a man and a woman lifelong. I think I'm saying just alongside that, ideal, but the reality is that people are cohabiting, and do we encourage them to move toward that ideal, or do we, I don't know what the option is, because there isn't an option for me. I think it's about embracing the love that's there.
Sorry.
If I could come back to that as well, because there's two things in your question, and in the question that was promoted, which need to kind of unwind for paganism. Does sex matter before marriage? Well, yes, sex definitely does matter. So that's one thing, and marriage is. Well, different faiths will define marriage in different ways. So a pagan perspective on this would be that it could be a step towards marriage. It could be a fulfillment of a relationship. If the sex is spiritual, then certainly it would be there would be no issue around it. It's when sex is treated very casually, that for paganism, that wouldn't fit into the pagan ethics.
Is your question related?
Yeah, I just wanted to reply. I think maybe there's different Christians who have different opinions on the topic, but I'm a Christian, and I think for me it's very clear that you have to be a virgin until you get married. And I know that everyone at my church would agree with it, and I think most Christians would agree with it. And of course we're human beings, so we disagree on everything, but I think by reading the Bible, by praying, by thinking of it, it was the most...
Oh, no,
I'm not going to judge someone because they decided not to be a virgin.
No, I agree that humans have got different opinions and different viewpoints, but I was trying to understand it from a religious aspect.
Can I ask what happens if you don't get married?
That's what I was going to ask. What happens if you've never got the money to never get married? Are you never going to have sex? Or recreate?
Does that then
You don't need money to get married.
Yeah.
Well,
in today's society, it's quite a topical
you have to pay to go to the registry office to get married. You have to then pay for the church. So technically, you do have to have money to get married.
No, it doesn't have to be much. It could be a ring.
Or if you don't find that right person?
You still have to pay for the
If you don't have the
registry.
right person,
I'm
you
not
don't
going to
get
have
married.
sex.
There's a gentleman over there.
I was going to say, I've known people to have like mixed views, but I just wanted to throw something out there and just see what other people think. I know that people I've spoken to have the view that I need to try before I buy. That is exactly how it works.
That's a good idea.
Now, but when I asked the question on that, it was, how do you know that you are sexually compatible with somebody before you get, if you don't try? So I just thought I'd ask that to find out, you know.
Go and see your doctor. Go and see your doctor.
What I was going to say there was that if you don't try, you don't know any better, do you? So for example, if somebody has never drunk alcohol before, they wouldn't know any better, would they? So that's the concept Islam has. If you've never tried it with anyone else, then for you the first time is with your wife, and then you don't know, there's nothing to compare it to, so you just think that is, that's just the way it is.
Somebody else.
Maybe the answer is that it's something you become, such as religion is something you become. So you become compatible and you become religious. It's something that evolves between you.
I think religion is there in the first place, though, which stops you delving into that kind of thing outside of marriage. I think the religion is there.
I just wondered, according to Christianity and the Bible, is sexual marriage actually allowed?
Fornication.
Sorry,
according to the Bible, is sexual marriage actually allowed in Christianity?
according to the Bible, is sex before marriage allowed?
When Jesus addresses this, when the question is asked of Jesus in the context of adultery, Jesus invites the hearers to look back to what was taught at the very beginning, that the law was given for a monogamous relationship. But I come back to the reality of those who present themselves, and also those who presented themselves to Jesus. So Christianity meets people where they are. You can't meet an individual and address their sexuality or their problems or issues around relationships, other than where they are, and help them to move towards that ideal.
So is that...
Was that a yes or a no? Was that a yes or a no?
I don't know. Yes or no?
I have to say, there seems to be a lot of answer to that. No, not just yourself.
I got the answer from you. I got the answer.
No, but it seems,
I just wasn't sure.
because the idea, there seems to be a lot of attention on the Christian aspect of the Bible and the response, and I think to have such a lovely response to 3 questions is pretty amazing. There's the duality of the universe. There is no black and white. There is a lot of grey area in every question. There's always 2 sides to a story, and I think to have such a lovely answer 3 times is pretty good. Just my view.
Can I just add to this discussion that this lady here was saying about Christian perspectives. Christianity is a very broad church. I'm a Quaker. I think we would be put towards the other extreme of that. You mentioned, vaguely we're talking about relationships and talking about the Quaker perspective, it's about the relationship. Marriage is the relationship, not a piece of paper, not words you say. It's about relationship. And Quakers believe, in the Christian tradition, Quakers are traditionally Christian, that the relationship is what is important, not the people involved. So not their gender, not whether they've signed a bit of paper or not. It's about a loving relationship. That's marriage. So if you're in a loving relationship, you're in a marriage, whether you've signed a bit of paper or not. Quakers are quite happy with not promiscuity, it's the relationship that's important. And I think that links in with the Buddhist idea of the,
extremely, yeah. I think it's a beautiful approach.
Not destructive relationships are not what we as Quakers would call marriage. It's a destructive relationship. I just wanted to find
it's a lovely view, though. Really lovely view.
You said, Simon, and not to get too much detail, but you said like the difference between having spiritual sex and having one-night stands, and I was just wondering, I've never heard what's spiritual, what's the difference? What's spiritual sex? How's that? Not the behind the building, but what's the difference? Is there something we're missing? I mean, is there
something we can
yeah, I'm going to leave it at that. Take your own interpretation, but
have a Bible on your chest. Have a Bible on your chest.
Well, actually, following up from what the lady was saying, it's whatever you call a relationship, whether you call it marriage or if you just call it a sexual relationship, what's important is that the people in that relationship, and I'm not confining it to two people, there could be, you could buy one and get one free. But the importance is that the spiritual connection is it's the intimacy of it. Do you really know that person? Are you connected through your faith, through your belief structure, through your soul? And I don't think you are if you haven't met that person before. You know nothing about them. So that's why, for me, or for pagans, casual sex lacks that intimacy, lacks that spirituality, because you really don't know much about the other person.
I actually, sorry to chip in, I've been quiet for the last 10 minutes. I actually, from my own opinion, I quite meet Paul a lot.
Yeah.
Simon, long day. Yeah, so personally, it's about being that. It does matter really, because you need to be able to distinguish that relationship. But there's no point in jamming on to someone and, to put it in the simple term, getting down and doing it. I'm split in the middle, because I've got my opinion and I've got people that have said to me to comment on certain bits. From the community of LGBT, that does happen a lot. There's not more of the younger population will quite happily relationship hop and shop around and sometimes buy one get four free. However, I've seen it happen. Not visually, but I've heard. What's my opinion on that? Well, that's their own choice. It is your own choice what you want to do. Yes. Oh, hello. Sorry. Hi.
John. It's a statement rather than a question. But there is a particular base style where even husband and wife aren't allowed to have a physical relationship. And that is in an Orthodox Jewish wedding where during the wife's days in the month, they have to use separate bedrooms. And even worse than that, when the wife is finished, at times she has to go into a very cold public bath known as a mikveh. And only then can they resume their relationship.
The last speaker reminded me of Sidra's presentation, and Sidra made the very valid point of it's very difficult sometimes to disentangle the faith aspects from the cultural aspects of a thing. I mean, how important does the panel think that the cultural side of sex marriage and that is it more important than the religious side?
Yeah, I think religion is more important because with cultural distortions actually spoil the religion. And I think that there's a clear distinction, there should be a clear distinction between religion and culture. And this is where I think society goes wrong. A lot of things happen within culture and then people get mixed up with the religion and think that's in the religion. And you know, there was some classic examples that I gave there. One of them was about forced marriages, which is a cultural thing, and a lot of it happened, you know, within India, where there were caste systems and things, where you know there was all this business about this person is from this caste has to marry this girl from this caste, and that's how all these forced marriages came about, and then spread around Asia. And that stemmed from culture, but not from the religion. Like I said, in religion, you can marry any, you know, status and colour and that kind of stuff. So I think it is important, and I think the main thing is the rest of society don't know, can't distinguish between both. We might know within our faiths what is religion and what is culture, but I think the biggest danger is that others don't know. And then they confuse the religion with the culture. And they are separate.
If I can quote the Pope, I wouldn't do this every day, so the Pope said that the Church's small-minded rules have badly affected people. So the pagan approach, pagan answer to whether it's culture or religion would be, if religion can't adapt to culture, then there's something wrong with religion.
That was the point I was going to make, really, in the sense that religion is actually, you know, in a sense, tries to make culture fit to itself. You know, is not religion, the religious view, the problem, in a sense, that, you know, if a religion is too strict with its rulings, if it's too strict with its precepts, if it's too strict with the way that it controls and governs people, is this not where the problem really lies? And should religion not, and this is a question to the panel, should religion not actually be taking into account the culture of the time of the age? Because how can you fit something that's antiquated into the modern world? It just doesn't fit, in my view, personally. And I think the reason why I'm a Buddhist, and particularly the form of Buddhism that I practice, is because Buddhism moulds and changes with the culture and it adapts to the time. And I think that that's absolutely essential for any kind of healthy crossover between spirituality and, you know, cultural choice. So I don't know, so the question, I guess, is, you know, what's the panel's view on that? Should society fit the religion with regards to sex and marriage? Or should, you know, the religion kind of, you know, go with the cultural norm of the time?
Yeah, I'd like to answer that. I think with religion, that's from God. So God sets the rules. But with the world...
If you believe in God.
Yes.
But, you know, you can be religious without believing in God. So...
Yes. This is Islamic point of view, which we do believe in God.
Yeah, sure.
So with Islam, we believe that God is the one who sets the rules. But with the world and culture, that's man-made. So we change the world, we make it modern. But God's word stays the same throughout time. So when He reveals a religion, it's there until the next religion comes, in a way. But if the world modernizes or changes, then we are doing that. So that's man-made, but religion is from God.
Thank you.
I think this is a question about spirituality. For me, love and faith, there isn't an antithesis. There isn't. I try not to separate the two. I think it's an issue of spirituality, so that faith expressed in a community, in a Christian community, if you like, defines the parameters of how that love is expressed. In law, civil marriage, a marriage that is conducted in a civil establishment, and a marriage that's conducted in a church, there is no distinction in law. And the church doesn't teach, and in fact the church, let me put it in a positive way, the church doesn't suggest that love is not there, God is not part of that marriage that's taking place in a civil ceremony. There's no distinction in law, and the same declarations have to be made. So for me, it's an issue of spirituality. So love might be expressed outside of the religious doctrines and creeds, and equally love can be expressed within the church. When someone is married in the context of the Church of England, they're encouraged, obviously, through the preparation to explore and to look at the doctrines of the Church of England and the creeds. But if an individual chooses to marry outside, God is still present. I can't argue that God is not present. It's simply spirituality, and my definition of spirituality is the way in which our faith is expressed, which might be expressed within the context of an institution, or it might be expressed outside. And I welcome, of course, those who want to express it within the church, but also relate and communicate with those who choose otherwise. God is huge.
I think different religions react at different speeds. They will eventually catch up with culture and society. They just take different times to do it. I mean, Islam is probably the newest of the organised religions around this table. And Islam, the foundation of Islam, was to kind of put some order for the society of the time. You could argue the same about Christianity, was to apply some kind of logic and order to something that was happening, so some cultural change. And it's certainly for paganism, you could probably say that the most recent real shift in our culture was with the First World War and what happened after it. And people were trying to make sense of that and how it impacted on their lives. And a lot of what we practice in paganism, particularly around Wiccan, is to do with how people dealt with those really difficult, turbulent times. So religion, I think, is catching up. It just does it at different paces.
But surely the two biggest influences on the fact that you are following your faith and beliefs, and how you interpret them, and how you live your lives, is our parents and our access to media. So the way that religion develops or doesn't develop, or becomes at odds with society, and even the people that in their own faith channel, to use that word, is the extent to which they have access to media and the way that media influences us. Even things that you're talking about as side issues such as sex before marriage, all of those things are influenced by access to media, which is why, for instance, just mentioned war. It's why don't we have wars now as much? Because we won't go to them, because we are influenced by our access to media. And we rebel against it, and because that wouldn't have happened in the First World War, and even in the Second World War, because we were completely obedient to the nation state, and very few people dared to say they wouldn't go and fight wars that were nothing to do with them, and didn't follow their beliefs. So now, if we didn't know, if this was a completely dark room, the debate being taking place in darkness, we wouldn't know your individual beliefs and religions. But the one thing that we would know is that you all had very good parenting. That's the reason that you follow the religions that you do. You're either following a parental script or a parental anti-script. You are, and if you didn't have access to media, you wouldn't even know that.
But it's not necessarily about.
Or Buddhism existed.
I disagree totally. It's not about media. It's not about.
But you wouldn't know Buddhism existed.
Well, I'll finish and I'll let you know how I did. I was brought up one of 10 kids, Irish Catholic, massive family, all of them devout Catholics. Went to a Catholic school, didn't resonate with me. I didn't understand, didn't get the concept of God. It wasn't part of my makeup, if you like. They all responded to it. All of my family are devout Catholics. Mum and Dad were devout Catholics. I couldn't get it. It comes to confirmation, I said, no, I don't want to. Then I decided through my own free will to expand my knowledge through travel and to actually travel to these countries and travel the world for lots and lots of years, to live with different cultures, to experience different cultures, and to find out how the world lives and develop that acceptance and knowledge of people so there's no more fear. Because we're very quick to put up national or social barriers through fear, and fear is through for a lack of understanding. So when I chose, of my own back without media, to go and travel to these countries and live with the cultures, I developed a great deal of love for Buddhism, because it gave me the opportunity to expand my own journey, my own mind, my own consciousness, and give me a path that I believe I can achieve self-awakening. So it wasn't through media or parental guidance, it was through...
Did you have good parenting?
I had wonderful parenting.
That's exactly what I'm saying. If we didn't know your religion or your beliefs, we'd know that you all on the panel had very good parenting.
But you also mentioned this, it was kind of like a choice was almost out of your hands in regards to what you believe. You said it was very influenced.
No, I didn't say the choice was ours, but the extent to which we have that choice, the extent to which we question our beliefs, and the extent to which we form our own identity is about those two main influences, which is parenting and access to media.
I'm going to turn the table slightly. I don't think it is because of good parenting or bad parenting. If I'm good,
I know you have good parenting.
Pardon me?
I know you have good parenting.
With that being rude, you can't comment on that, so I'm about to share that with the room. I had a very unfair upbringing, if I'm honest. Throughout my young years, I lost my nan when I was 14, and I lost my granddad when I was just about early last year. But my dad always segregated himself from me. He only helped me in my first year of secondary school, so year 7. And then after that, but when I started growing up, he practically sort of sidelined me and spent more quality time with my brother playing computer games. My mum, however, I'm a mummy's boy. I worry. As I said earlier on, if my stomach and my heart and my head match up, or 2 out of them 3 add up, then I will make a decision. But it isn't about the good. I've not had a good parenting and I've not had a bad parenting, and it's not that they've governed that. I was brought up to be independent, and I make my own decisions on what I believe. Now, because
that's good parenting.
Pardon?
That's good parenting.
But how can
it's not? Can I just? Sorry. It's not about that at all, in my opinion. And it's obviously my opinion, and not that of any other student or the university. However, I believe that I am here where I am today because of people guiding me, and that may be my granddad, my friend who I was very close to at work. She passed away many years ago, and I follow what I think's right. I get a feeling in my stomach, and I think, right, does that make sense? And then I'm going to go along with it. And if I attempt it and it doesn't add up, then I will quite happily not do it. When again, going through my early teens, I had a very bad time and experience, and I got abused as a child. And to sit here and say that is quite brave and bold. However, that was the bad side of parenting. But on the other flip side, I didn't have the good or the bad. It was what I've made myself what I am today. You know, I don't know many students that send 25 emails a week, that is an experienced officer for a society, a student rep for a course, and a student ambassador for the university, other than myself and maybe a couple of others. But that's because I've gone along with what I believe in, and I've chose to be part of the LGBT community because that is what I'm happy with. That's not through my mum saying, you must do this, you must do that, or my dad saying, well, actually my dad made a bold statement. He said, if you ever turn out gay, I'm going to disown you. Well, hey, life is but a challenge, and I accept any challenge I take. However, it's about what I want out of life. And if I don't want to be accustomed to certain things, I won't do them. I always used to enjoy, I was saying to Karen, I always used to enjoy time with my granddad. When I saw him once a month or once every couple of months, I used to work so many hours at Asda during the day. But he never tried to govern me and bring me up with the perspective of the church, not that I'm being disrespectful. But as a whole, I always listened to him, but I never sort of put myself in a position that I have to actually do what he says. So it's about me doing what I want and believing it inside myself.
Can I bring Simon in? Just a second. I'll just bring Simon in.
I take your point and understand what you're saying about good parenting. I mean, up until I was a teenager, I was brought up as a Christian. I was confirmed, and I used to go to Christian camps and do all kind of Christian stuff. But it's what you think of as your parents. My dad disappeared when I was 10, so I had to seek out other relationships, other paternal relationships, and that was through my mother's circle of friends and their circle of friends. So I'll take your point about yes, you are influenced by your parents.
What I'm saying is that you all share the same core beliefs. You apply that through your religious channel. You've got.
I think that's the definition of faith, is that there is a set of core beliefs that binds us all. It's about morality, really. Yes. Lay it back.
Me? Okay. Well, I don't mind.
Who was it?
The gentleman was first, actually. That's okay.
Oh, have you remember what you're going to say now?
Well, I was actually just going to comment on what the gentleman behind me was going to say. I do believe that when you're growing up, or to a certain degree, you are influenced by probably what your parents and how you live is I would probably say influenced to a certain degree up to a certain age. For everybody, I think that's different. But I think beyond that, and probably maybe as an early teenager, maybe for some people later on in the teenagers, you are of the mindset where you are an individual. You can make your own choices and decide whether you want to follow a particular belief or not. But I would say certainly before that, any, I would say, other faith or religion or belief that you want to follow, I would say would probably be that of maybe what your parents or family members believe, because as a young child, that is all you know. I mean, in my household, my parents were Christians. They went to church every weekend, and as a child, so did I, because I didn't know any different. But certainly, as I got older, I think as in my early teens, that decision was then for me to make whether I wanted to continue in that way of life or choose a different path for myself.
Okay, we've given the subject a good airing actually. The subject is love, sex and marriage, and I'd quite like to come right back to that, and I'm also aware of the time. So is there another question?
I think just going back to when you mentioned the media, it's sort of changing the subject a bit, but what does the panel think about people like celebrities, sort of like, I suppose with the whole Miley Cyrus thing, sort of like, using sexuality to kind of, through media, what sort of people think about that?
I'll partially comment on that. With the LGBT community, a lot of people tend to prefer to believe what is said and actioned. However, not everyone, say for example the people that I know, not everyone will follow that certain aspect of what, say, a celebrity is. But some people, it goes back to what you believe in and where your comfort zone is. If you want to follow, I don't know, let's say Harry from McFly, he's one of the band members, but I personally like him, not because I'm attracted to him, but his talent. So I think it's about, if you agree with, for me, it's a bit of a mixed bag, but you need to be able to, certain people believe in certain aspects of following a belief of that set person, or they don't.
I think I meant more sort of, I suppose people expressing themselves, like music videos, expressing themselves sort of sexually. What does the panel sort of think of that? Is it a good means of expression, or?
Yeah, I think that the media has a huge influence actually on, especially the young children that are growing up. You know, programs like EastEnders, for example, where people are in and out of relationships very, very often. A lot of the children nowadays, and I am a teacher and I work with children all the time, grow up thinking that is the normal world. They think that is the way it is. You know, the way, you know, Pop Idol and those kinds of programs, you know, the way youngsters are dressing, that kind of stuff, is definitely having a huge impact on children growing up nowadays. You know, I work in a primary school, and when there's a disco, it's shocking to see what the girls are wearing, you know, makeup and everything, and it's all copied from, you know, pop stars, because you mentioned pop stars and actors and actresses, and I think that the youngsters are being influenced the most because they are into social media a lot, computers, everything is readily available nowadays, pornography is out in the open. So, you know, I think everything in the media, it is influencing the youngsters especially.
I'm going to take one more comment from a panel member on this, and then I'm going to allow one more question, because it is 9:15, and I'm conscious of the time. So, Simon, you had a...
Yeah, I touched on this in my introduction about how things like the wristbands have been warped into something which is meaningless to faith. You're talking about the culture of celebrity, and I have faith in people that they will grow out of that. That is a phase that people will go through, and when they realise what's important in life, they will basically grow up.
Okay, can we have... Sorry, yes, your hand up was early, was it?
Thank you. So I stand up because then I can see everyone.
Is this a question or a comment on...
based on marriage. It's just out of interest. I want to know what all the faiths believe. So in Islam, we say that to find a spouse, we have particular things that we look for. So mainly it would be their faith and character, and then after that would be the wealth, status, and looks. I wanted to know, like, we say this because we say that when both of them kind of complement each other and they help each other in the faith, they then can help them to go into paradise. Now, as in different faiths, what do they look for in spouses, should I say, when they're getting married? And do they look for them things to benefit them to go into paradise? I just wanted to know that. I hope it's a good question.
What do we look for in our partners in faith spiritual terms?
I'll answer. It's difficult for me, as I said earlier. The approach of the term "I love you" is conditional. So I love you because you make me feel safe, happy, secure. I try, and it's very difficult, but my journey is to try and promote unconditional love, which is I already love you. The idea that I want to make you happy because I already love you, and that goes for everyone. It's a community, everyone is the same. I would say I will try to love everyone the same. And as I said, the world we live in, or the way we are as humans, there always is that one person that you will connect to, maybe more so than others.
So how do you connect then? Because if you love everybody equally as much and it's great, how do you then single one person?
As I said, from a personal point of view, the term I love is unconditional love, so you're not expecting anything back, you're not doing it to feel good about something, you already love that person. Right. So when there is that one person, that is a case of, you could almost see them transcend life, consciousness, you already connect to them, you know them, there's something about them, and it's inexplainable. Love is a very broad term, and the idea of unconditional love is amazing, but the idea that people do genuinely, I believe, know, they meet someone, there's just something. You can't explain whether what's the first thing you saw, their shoes, their face, their car, they smile, their joke, you don't know really. No one can pinpoint that one moment, and I honestly think it's the idea of just wait and see, whatever you feel, go with, because if you already love that person on a base level that you don't want anything from them to make you conditioned, then that will grow into something pretty amazing.
So how do you do online dating then?
Online dating? Because there's nothing wrong with online dating.
No, I'm just saying, then, for example, with online dating, you put search criteria. You look for a female or male, age
But why
between
would you?
25.
But
Well,
why
that's
would
what I'm
you?
saying. Or
That's the point for me.
won't.
Why would you?
But I'm saying that when you do that, when you look for a search online,
Yeah.
how do you go about doing it?
Yeah, but I'm saying, personally, if I was to do online dating,
yeah.
my sexual orientation is for women, but I have been lucky enough to find my girlfriend. I honestly believe if she was to come back and I was to come back and we would both be guys, I'd still love her and I'd still want to marry her. And that is honestly what I believe. Love transcends everything. Creed, race, colour, religion, gender, everything. And if my honest opinion would be, because my sexual orientation for now is a woman, I would put woman. Because it doesn't matter. You meet that person. Now, why would you subject yourself to such boundary? Not you personally, but the boundaries of 18 to 25, black, white, Christian, whatever it might be. You can meet someone that's 70 and think, actually, you're beautiful. Who cares? You don't know. It's yeah, absolutely. So that's how I promote it. That's how I'd say it.
Well, my paganism answer to that would be quite similar. I mean, if two or more people are looking for the same thing, their paths, if they're lucky, will meet. And you just have to look out for when those paths do cross, and make the most of that opportunity. In terms of search terms, well, I think because pagans do tend to meet online, because like I said, it's a very small community. They've got to do things like that. They would be searching for people interested in spirituality, interested in nature, that kind of thing. That's the practicalities of it. But it's making sure that you keep your eyes open for when someone crosses your path who shares the same things as you.
I think we have time for one more.
I just out of interest, who here believes in sexual marriage, who doesn't?
Audience.
When you say believe, what do you mean
So, I mean,
believe?
is it acceptable to have sex out of marriage?
Yeah.
So the motion is, who believes that sex before marriage is acceptable? And who doesn't? It's a roughly 50-50 split.
I think it's more a dozen, I would say.
Well, I think that's probably quite a good place to end. Split right down the middle. Can I, on behalf of us, can I thank Rachel for her incredible hospitality tonight and for the lovely food and for. Along with Sidra for creating such a very interesting programme. And can I thank you all for your courtesy and for the panel for such hard work. It's actually quite hard work to be up here in the spotlight and, as I said before, to talk as personally and as honestly as they did, and that really blew me away. It's the final comment really, without being prosaic about it. I mean, in such a divided and torn apart world, to have an experience like this, to be in a room with so many different shades and colours and opinions, it's actually a great privilege to be here and to hear so many different viewpoints, but to still part friends. So thank you all for coming, and bless you, and thank you again to the panel for all they've done. Thank you.